The first Descendant is exactly what you think it is. Now, I just want to state that I do play the first Descendant. I play it myself. I just don't play it on the channel. But that is such a funny game. So let's see what he's talking about.
The first Descendant is the most conflicted and confused about a game I've ever been. I try to make sure that when I play a game for the first time, I'm doing it blind. No wikis, no guides, no videos, no nothing. Because I want to give you guys the most unfiltered opinion I possibly can give. And I want to have an unadulterated experience, so to say. And in the past, we've talked about how with as many games that have been coming out, as many live service games, because everybody wants to get into that market today, that oftentimes a lot of these games are not delivering an experience that's worth the investment, either by way of bad game design or bad monetization. But in the case of the first Descendant, there are so many things about this game that I absolutely love. There have been times where it was hard for me to put this game down. But in equal parts in the opposite direction, I have some very heavy criticisms for this game. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about my experience playing the first Descendant for the very first time. I want to talk about what it looked like, what it felt like, and most importantly, what it cost. I'm what you would call a looter shooter.
I mean, me personally, it cost $0 for me, but you know, other than that, let me just start pause so early. I just want to give my thoughts on it as well, because I played the game. I think the story is actually pretty fun. It's actually pretty entertaining to me, and the combat could be a little bit better, but other than that, I mean, it's better than Destiny in my opinion.
Aficionado, a connoisseur of sorts. Destiny 1, Borderlands 1, 2, and 3, Tiny Tina's and the pre-sequel, Outriders, The Division.
Same here.
1 and 2. These have always been some of my favorite games to play. I enjoy the game loop of picking up a ton of loot, sifting through it, finding what you like, and immediately going back out to find the next best thing. Slowly but surely watching your power grow and seeing that growth reflected in how easily you smash through obstacles that used to cause you pause in the past. Just recently, I got back into the looter shooter action RPG genre with Warframe. I have a complete series on that experience here on YouTube, me playing the game for the very first time. I highly recommend that you watch it because some of that experience will be reflected here, as these games share a lot of similarities. So, what is the first Descendant? Well, it's a free-to-play, third-person, cooperative action RPG developed by Nexon Games. Set in a futuristic sci-fi world, players take the role of Descendants, who are humanity's last hope at defending against their invaders, known as the Vulgus, and these powerful void-sent beings called the Colossi. The game features a variety of characters with unique abilities, customizable weapons and gear that you can upgrade. You can team up in squads of up to 4 players, tackle different missions, explore the game's world, and take on challenging enemies both in small and large-scale boss battles. I logged into the game and was presented with a cutscene and a character selector. I'll be honest, after the post-apocalyptic intro, humanity on the brink of destruction, it was a bit of a tonal contrast hearing a grisly commander walk up to tell me that I was going on a dangerous mission with a character named Bunny. I was given the choice between the frost-wielding Viessa, explosive-throwing Lepic, and the defensive Ajax. I went with Viessa for 2 very big reasons. AoE damage and debuffing characters is always a fun way to play. A few things stood out to me from the second that I started playing this game. One being how great the game looks and how few performance issues that I had. And the other being just how great, how fantastic.
See, I had some performance issues, but I figured out it's because of what thing that it's on. I know. I need to download it on my SSD. I don't have it on my SSD, and it does not really like the hard drive that I have it on.
Fantastic the game feels to play. The movement feels great, weapons feel great, abilities are responsive and useful, and the enemies have just the right amount of health and damage so that the gameplay feels more engaging. I can't quite say just how much I appreciate that perfect mix of resistance and reward at the very beginning of the game, because it makes it feel like what you're doing has meaning. If the gameplay is too easy, the weapons, the abilities, the upgrades, build crafting, and loot all become meaningless. A major point of criticism that I had when I played Warframe for the first time. From the onset of the first Descendant, I'm already starting to think about my ability combinations, when and where to use them. I'm looking at loot, trying to find upgrades, and I'm already experimenting with mods for those weapons and abilities, which is a cornerstone to this genre's experience. As I continued to play, I quickly grew to appreciate the game's pseudo-open world design, which is almost a carbon copy of Destiny, with a much smaller map. But With that said, there's a major benefit to the smaller map size, and that's that you're more likely to see other players, which I frequently did. If players had already started a mission, I could jump in midway or vice versa. You could even jump into somebody else's mission just by shooting one of the enemies that they're fighting rather than actually having to interact with the quest marker.
That is true. Sorry for pausing again so early. That is true, but I know, I'm gonna be honest, that gets on my nerves sometimes now in the later game. In the beginning of the game, I was like, oh yeah. But in the later game, it kind of gets on my nerves because sometimes they're in it, like, let's say that since the map is small, like, it's not that much space to go, right? So if you're here and their enemy and they're fighting somebody fighting somebody over here, right? So their enemy will run to you because it's not like it's locked behind missions. Is they target whoever the hell they want to target. So they'll run to you and then you shoot them, and now you end up entering a mission instead of continuing your mission, and now you got more people than you were supposed to have. So yeah, it kind of gets it. That is the only thing that gets on my nerves. Other than that, I mean, I think I like the game. The game is fun to me.
Very quickly, I found myself falling into the game loop, running from node to node, helping out other players, exploring different sections of the map, and ultimately really enjoying the game's level design. As I continued to play the game, areas became a lot more complex and diverse. There were a ton of different places for you to be able to toss your grapple hook, which honestly I thought was going to be more of a gimmick when I first saw it, but genuinely grew to really enjoy this movement mechanic. But I really want to pay my respects because I found it really interesting how progressively more cool each zone got as you slowly pushed further into enemy territory, from overgrown outskirts to sci-fi temples filled with alien architecture. The first Descendant is a game that grows on you very quickly. I genuinely enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay, grapple hooking around, flipping behind some enemies, taking them all down. The loot was engaging, the maps were engaging. If I wasn't paying attention, the enemies could very easily take me down, and in that, I have a lot of respect. It is so important to have good balance in a game like this, because from the onset, I am already paying attention to my character's abilities. I'm paying attention to the loot that I'm picking up. I'm looking at the mods. I'm build crafting and things like that because I'm noticing as I'm playing that, well, I'm becoming a little less effective and the enemies are becoming far more effective, and I have to find an answer to that. And if the loot doesn't matter and the character builds don't matter because the game is too easy at the start, well, then why are you even playing a game like this? It's the whole point of playing these kind of games is to build that character power and be able to answer the issues and the problems that the enemies pose to you, right? And it's a major criticism that I had for Warframe, a huge one. It almost made me quit the game because it was so easy for far too long at the beginning of the game, where it made it feel like weapons, warframes, their abilities, none of those things really mattered all that much because you just breeze through just about everything in the game. Ultimately, I didn't quit, and I'm glad that I didn't because Warframe's an absolutely fantastic game. But with that said, this is a lesson that a lot of developers can learn from. If your game is too easy at the beginning, then it's too boring. If your game is too hard, then you're going to bounce players right off of your game. You want to find that sweet spot right in the middle that keeps players engaged and keeps players engaging with the mechanics that they're going to be using for the entire game. It's the reason why they play it in the first place. But the first Descendant does a lot of other things really well. And one of those things is its new player experience. Damn.
Yeah, the new player experience is pretty good. For somebody that started about 20 days ago. Can't remember exactly when I started, but yeah, I'd say, yeah, their player experience is actually pretty good.
They did a really good job. Games like the first Descendant live and die by their systems, so it's essential to make sure that the players understand how they work because they're going to be the main way that they're going to continue to progress through that game and ultimately what they're playing that game for. Except for the Gooners. Yes, I know why you play this game. Please stop bowing next to my ass in Albion.
That's crazy. People actually do that? No way. I have never seen somebody do that. Usually, especially in Albion, they just be going wherever they need to go. But yeah, I do understand what they mean though. Like some of these characters, goddamn.
When you have,
especially the new one, so we know the first Descendant knows themselves. They know themselves what they do. That trailer is insane.
A game that is entirely dependent on its systems, you have to make sure that you're introducing those systems to players immediately so that they can interact with them from the start, learn them from the start, and apply that knowledge throughout the game. One of First Descendant's first missions is actually to create another Descendant. The game gives you a brief tutorial by way of an NPC, and the mission progress is tracked. The game shows you the loot pools hovering over the different nodes. You go to each node, complete the missions for a chance at the reward. Soon after completing the quest for Bunny, you're given another quest to go build an ultimate weapon, the Thunder Cage. By doing this, you are setting players' expectations. I don't have to buy these things. I don't have to buy these characters or weapons, and I can make them, and this is how I do it. When I see something that I want in the game, whether it's a weapon, character, mod, or piece of equipment, I know how to go look for it now and how to make it.
Sorry to pause again, but it's like, I mean, yeah, that is true. Like, you know what you can grind and what you can't grind for. Like, you know that, to be honest, you can grind for anything in the game. Like, anything in the game that you see, you can grind for it also. The only downfall for me is that grinding the characters are so hard, especially for some of them, because it's like, you have a certain chance of this thing dropping. If it don't drop, then you got to go back and do it all over again and over again and over again, because it's a 5% chance. So you could fight the same thing like 8 times before you actually get the character. Like, that's the only thing. Other than that, I mean, yeah, but also the characters only cost about, like, I think like $5 each if you just wanted to buy them.
Step by step, the game walks you through the process of how you will ultimately be playing this game in the end game. Targeting loot, farming it, upgrading it, rinse and repeat. They provide solid tutorials on transferring weapon levels so you can continue to use the weapons that you enjoy the most, how to tune weapon substats, how to install mods, how to upgrade them, and how to salvage them. Quick shout out to whoever's in charge of quality of life. The select all duplicates feature in dismantling items is an absolute godsend. By fully explaining these systems through actions rather than words, it didn't take long before I was already trying to make my next Descendant or weapon. Only after a few hours of play, I'm already farming missions to get Freyna, a feat that I didn't understand or achieve in Warframe for over 20 hours because it was never explained in-game, a major weakness that the first Descendant overcame through quest design. The first Descendant doesn't just teach players how to play, it's carefully constructing a foundation upon which their entire experience will be built. By introducing these systems early and thoroughly, the game isn't just educating, it's creating an experience between the player and that game's mechanics. This relationship is crucial because it turns what could be a mess of stats, upgrades, and options into a clear path of progression and mastery. When a game successfully embeds its systems into a player's understanding from the outset, it does something profound. It transforms the act of playing from mere participation to purposeful engagement. The player isn't just moving from one mission to the next, they're learning how to shape their experience, how to craft their journey, and how to define their success. And that's where the game hooked me. Because I already have a foundational understanding of these kind of mechanics from playing games like Warframe. I mean, these systems are wholly ripped from Warframe to begin with. That's pretty obvious. But with that said, when a game explains itself this well and executes it as well as the first Descendant does, it makes it so much easier for you to pay less attention to the finer details and more to just enjoying the game and how the game plays, how the characters feel, how the weapons feel, and all those kind of things. It makes the game that much more fun to play. And this is a feeling and experience that I've been looking for a long time. It's something that I really only think I've ever seen well executed by games like The Division or Borderlands, because they understand that loop and that reward system and how to really make it sing. Really make the...
That is true. Borderlands, I played The Division, but I didn't really feel it in The Division. But Borderlands, yes. Borderlands definitely do know how to do that.
Players fall in love with it. And
I play all of them, by the way, from the first one to Tiny Teen Does Wonderland or whatever it was called.
I love this. I genuinely love this. I've been looking for this for a long time, especially in a live service game, and this game delivers on it in a way that I am enthralled. I absolutely love it. But I didn't think that I would like the first Descendant. I never thought I would. Because when I first saw it, it looked like it was nothing more than a complete and utter ripoff of Warframe, mixed with some elements of Destiny and The Division. I figured it was nothing more than a blatant cash grab from Nexon, copying off of the success of another company with very little changes, and I was right. That's exactly what this game is. This game suffers from an issue of an identity crisis, where you have developers that are trying to make a good game, but Nexon wants it to be what they always make. The feeling I get from this game, and this is the first time I think we've ever seen something like this so clearly, is that the developers want to make a great game, but management wants it to be like everything else the company produces. While the game in many ways improves upon the works it copies from the very beginning, the minute you start to look past the art design and gameplay, the paint starts to chip. Narratively, I have no idea what's going on. I tuned out within the first few hours because I can only take so much dialogue from completely expressionless characters saying absolutely nothing of value. I'm
gonna be honest, I like the story. I think the story is actually pretty decent. I mean, if I'm gonna be completely honest, it's kind of dull in the beginning, but near the end it picks up. Like I don't know, it actually picks up because you feel the tension. You're like, okay, this is where we end at. And then, yeah, I think it's actually pretty decent on the story part, though.
I don't think I've ever played a game with this much pseudo-intellectualism.
It just allows them to just sit around and talk. I'm going to be honest. While they doing that, I just get up. Because you don't got to click a prompt, right? So I just get up and I just walk away. I walk away from it. I just like, yeah, I can hear them, so I'm good.
Nonsense. Either the story is completely written by AI or the writers were just stringing together sci-fi words, hoping and praying that it worked out. Descendant. We must put the Ironheart into the entropic space and your Arcades interdimensional neuroplane. Only then will the Colossi connect with the transmomental endoscopic vibrating array, colliding with the DeLorean particles at 88 miles an hour, dumping horse manure on Biff, correcting the timeline and increasing the bus size of all descendants, including Ajax. Look, gameplay always comes first. It's the most important thing to players. If the game isn't fun to play, then the game isn't going to get played. And with that said, nothing removes the player's ability to become invested in a game like generic characters and a generic story that makes no sense. Games don't need to have an insane story. They're like action movies. It's all about the action scenes, but at the very least, we want something coherent and entertaining to follow along with.
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of just turn my brain off when I play games like this, and it works out perfectly for me. Plus, I mean, it's like a generic story. I see most stories as generic stories because it's literally what it is. You're the good guy. You go fight the bad guy. You're done. Good job. Now go do something else until we make more story about the same thing. That's basically what it comes down to, right? But I don't know. I feel like I like it's this weird thing that nobody knows about, that being that only you and a few other people can see and hear come out of nowhere, and it was like, okay, yeah, let's go fight this.
I don't think the story would really even bother me that much if there wasn't so much of it. So many long pieces of drawn out dialogue of people staring at you while saying absolutely nothing of substance. I'm not saying that you need to create Red Dead Redemption or Metal Gear level story writing, but you at least have to try, and it's so blatantly obvious that this is where the budget was cut and no effort was put in. And that's not the only place you see it, because the story's not there to be able to distract you at all. You start seeing this one-dimensional design all over the game. The longer you play, the more repetitive quests and mini-boss design gets. What is up with this game's obsession with giving every boss invincibility phases and orbs? I absolutely love the concept of dungeons having traps and jumping puzzles. Some have different events, each with their own unique...
That is so true. Every boss has orbs that you got to beat, or a mob of enemies that you got to beat in order to get rid of their invincibility, because they get invincibility every like a little bit of health. But I think that's just there just to make it like last longer, to be honest.
Unique layout so you never feel like you're doing the same thing. And void intercept battles are so damn cool. They have great design, bosses have phases, weak points, resistances, and more. It's some of the best content in the game. But it doesn't make any sense that the content that we do the most in the game lacks any of that meaningful gameplay. We're shooting orbs, we're waiting for enemies to spawn, we're waiting for enemies to spawn around the boss to give him an invincibility shield, and then kill that wave of enemies for him to only summon another wave of enemies to kill so that we can then yet again break his invincibility.
Yep, see, I told y'all. That's how I be.
There are so many of these moments where I was left so confused, so conflicted, so many times by either the game's design or the clash of the story and character portrayals that I went from saying I'm having fun to why am I even playing this? Games are a medley. The games that both you and I love typically have all elements singing together in harmony. The visuals, the gameplay, the music, all of these things leaving a lasting impression on us, and more importantly, most times distracting us from other weaknesses that the game has. And that's the biggest issue when it comes to the first Descendant. They are relying so heavily on the gameplay of the game that everything else in the game becomes that much more apparent, that much more visible. And despite its promising concepts and engaging mechanics and everything else that the game offers, it fails in the execution of so many things. And there was one point when I was playing the game where I was so just dialed out on the story that what I ended up doing was skipping every piece of dialogue in an entire area, jumping from node to node, just completing quests, just trying to get through the game at that point. And I remember sitting there doing a mission, watching as a bunny ran around and killed everything. I couldn't even do anything because they literally just nuked everything before I could, I don't know, even play.
Yeah, that was bunny. That was bunny for you. I'll be hating this sometimes as well, because you'll go to a thing, you actually want to test out a character or something like that, and then next thing you know, a bunny shows up and just nukes everything before, as soon as the spawn's dead, as soon as the spawn's done. Oh look, you won. I'm like, God dang it! I wanted to test this character to see how it works, man. But yeah, that is one thing. Bunny is something fierce.
Play the game to begin with, and I just turned the game off. What am I even doing at this point? Why am I even playing this game? Now, this isn't to say that other games aren't guilty of things like this. Warframe has tons of repetitive issues, but at the exact same time, they have a lot of other things in the game that help to alleviate that repetition and take the focus away from those areas by giving other areas of the game for players to be able to enjoy. They serve as distractions, more or less. And when you don't have those, well, the comparison between your game and the games that you're copying off of become that much more visible in contrast, especially when you look at their monetization. I'm going to be making some direct comparisons.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, their monetization is kind of garbage. Like, their monetization is about the same as a gacha game, which is not good.
To Warframe, because there's a lot of value in that. If you're sick of hearing those comparisons, that's a you problem. Maybe I wouldn't be playing a game that is quite literally Warframe with Destiny's gameplay loops. It's like asking somebody not to compare PALs to Pokemon. In many ways, the game actually improves upon Warframe. It has meaningful boss content, dungeons, interesting build crafting, and a way better new player experience. But there is no way that I am turning a blind eye to the mobile game-inspired, trashy, blatant, time-wasting bullshit that you have to put up with to play this game.
Yeah, that's true. We can't forget, Nexon is a mobile gaming company. Like, they make a lot of mobile games, so yeah, it makes sense. That's why I'm gonna be honest, that's what first turned me off of the Descendant mainly, because I was like, oh, it's a Nexon game. Yeah, that's probably gonna be garbage. Then I played, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. But then at the same time, it's like, yeah, the microtransactions are about the same as a gacha game. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot it's Nexon. It's a mobile game company, so of course they're gonna have the things look like mobile game rates.
Every single one of their systems is wholly ripped from Warframe and made worse. Not because the developers messed up, not due to inexperience, because they are actively making the game worse so that you are more likely to spend money on their outrageously priced cash shop.
Yup, that is so true.
Structurally, these games are identical. Warframe and Descendants are a mirror image. You have base characters and improved versions of those characters in Prime Warframes and Ultimate Descendants. The same goes for weapons, but in the first Descendant, they didn't really carry over the base weapon thing with Prime weapons, so you just have generic loot and then ultimate weapons. But the acquisition for Ultimate Descendants and Ultimate Weapons are the exact same. So now that we've defined them, let's look at their approach to gameplay and monetization. In the first Descendant, you run specific missions all throughout the game for a drop chance at a specific blueprint that you're looking for. You need 4 blueprints to put together to be able to make the item that you're chasing. Those blueprints are built separately and then put together in the final step. Most of this is the exact same from Warframe. However, individual materials that are needed to create each separate blueprint in the first Descendant require you to farm specific materials from specific areas throughout the game, and many of them have their own drop tables. So if you want to make one piece of an Ultimate Descendant, as an example, you have to go open crates on one map, go farm another mission on another in a completely different zone with a different drop chance. You have to do void intercept battles for another blueprint with an exceedingly low drop chance. and then go and do an entirely different activity in another area to go get something else that you need. Well, all the
I don't know why people don't complain about this more. I'm gonna be honest, like the rates and everything for the drops, and also like you gotta do these to get these drops, and then you gotta go do that about like 8 more times, because like the drop rate of the thing for the character, that for a new character is like 5%, but this thing that we all know that 90% of people ain't gonna use is about 20%. So now you gotta grind this over and over again at this intercept battle or this boss battle that you only could pick one of them, and each of them is tied to a different boss battle. So now you gotta go grind all of these different boss battles over and over again until you finally get that 5% to drop, which could take, I mean, let's be real, it could take 1, it could take 80, and it's like, bro, like come on, like nobody want to sit there and grind like that. That's why I stopped playing the games for a little bit. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played in like 4 days.
all these items are farmable.
Because I wanted to grind Glade, but then when I realized what you have to do to grind Glade, it was like I said no. I dipped out of that.
Drop chances, the item specific activities, and the travel all add up. While playing Warframe, you're constantly finding these things called relics. In the first Descendant, they're called amorphous material, and they're functionally the same. You do missions called Void Fissures, you crack open the relics, and you get a chance to get the items that you want inside. Where these two games diverge is that all blueprints, primed weapons, and warframes come specifically from these relics. No other additional farms needed, no other missions to do, no running around all over the place looking for it. And best of all, if you're in a party, you can choose to get a copy of one of the other players' rewards. Meaning that if you're in a group of 4 and you're all running the same relics, you can very easily get the blueprints you're looking for within an hour or less. If you're running around with a random party and you don't get what you want, at least you can pick something valuable from a reward loot pool of one of the other players. Moreover, all the materials that you need to build those blueprints are...
Oh my gosh, they really did just copy and paste, huh? That's crazy, because that looks just like the same thing in the first Descendant. That's insane.
Just standard materials of no rarity that you're likely going to have a massive stockpile of far before you ever even try to chase any of these primed weapons or warframes. And to take this all a step further, if you noticed in the first Descendant, there is a material that you can use to be able to increase your drop chances on items with amorphous material. But that item that you need is incredibly specific. You have to farm it from very specific places, very specific missions, and it takes one single type for each type of amorphous material or different amorphous materials per bosses that you can use. In Warframe, they do the same thing, except for the fact that the material that you use actually just comes from doing the void missions in general. You're getting it constantly as you're playing and cracking these relics open. So the more you do, the higher you're increasing your drop chances, and the more likely you are to get what you want even faster. Oh, we're not done yet, because in Warframe, you can trade items with other players and premium currency, meaning that if you're going and cracking relics looking for primed weapons or warframes, ultimate descendants or weapons, well, you can trade those item for item with another player or for currency, and then go use that currency to trade with another player or to go use in the game's in-game shop. Better yet, you can actually even go and take those primed blueprints and go trade them into a vendor and then buy other things within the game as well from other unique shops that show up every once in a while. There's no time wasted. It respects your time. You're always being rewarded regardless if you're progressing towards the thing that you're actually trying to get. Actually, you are ultimately always progressing towards the thing that you're trying to get. Whereas in the first Descendant, if you don't get what you are looking for, well, then you just don't get what you're looking for. And you better hope the things that you do find are things that you want to use in the future, or you want to use to build, you know, a different frame or whatever it might, or Descendant or whatever it might be. And normally this kind of comparison really wouldn't be that big of a deal. But keep in mind that Warframe systems are entirely balanced around the fact that players can trade items in-game, trade premium currency in-game. So when you copy Warframe systems identically, like the first Descendant has, and then you remove the fairness, well, that's bullshit. Now, keep in mind, I'm making these comparisons because they are essential to the gameplay. Leveling up weapons, building characters, this is the core of the gameplay loop. The first Descendant also copied Warframe's modding system, where you can put mods onto weapons and characters as a form of build crafting, and both games have a limit on how many mods and what level those mods can be that you can install on these different items. However, this maximum can be increased. Energy activators are essentially the exact same thing as Orokin reactors and catalysts. They increase your mod capacity on weapons and warframes. Crystallized catalysts, on the other hand, are the exact same thing as Forma and Warframe, which allow you to be able to create these discounted slots, matching different symbols on mods to be able to give yourself more capacity. Energy activators and crystallized
downfall of that is that it resets your character. Like, I don't think that just because you add this extra thing to this spot that your character should reset all the way back to level 1. Like, that's dumb to me.
Catalysts essentially have the exact same farming method. I'll concede that specifically activators aren't limited like Warframe's Orokin counterparts. Forma, on the other hand, is exceedingly common to be able to come by. It's a byproduct of opening relics while you're looking for prime parts. The accessibility of these items is a major concern. They're not a convenience item. These are critical in the progression of the game, and without them, you're going nowhere. These items are made to be monetized. So let's look at how each game does that. In Warframe, Orokin reactors, catalysts, and Forma are all 20 platinum. And seeing as though you can buy only the minimum of 75 platinum at $5, we can say that these are $2 each. You can even buy a bundle of 3 Forma for $5. In the first Descendant, it's 1,500 caliper at a minimum of $25 for a single energy activator. It's 300 caliper at a minimum of $10 for a single crystallized catalyst. While the numbers speak for themselves, I want you to keep in mind that not only can players buy these for cash far cheaper in Warframe, but players can also, and quite easily and quite frequently, earn that premium currency through trades and buy those items outright that way. Which brings me to something that I think shows the difference between how these two games view their audiences and how much more those audiences are valued, and also how much further their money goes when they spend it in the game. Which is the notion of buying ultimate characters versus buying prime access bundles in Warframe. Now, keep in mind, the vast majority of players in Warframe don't really buy frames. They build frames. They go out, they farm the parts because it's so easy to do, it's so accessible, and they can also just go and buy them off the market or trade them with other players if they have things that they want to trade for. But I initially didn't want to bring up this kind of pricing comparison because it's not even worth making the comparison in the first place. If you buy a $79 Prime Access bundle in Warframe, you're not only getting the character, but you're getting the value of that money you spent in premium currency. More than that value, actually. Over $100 in premium currency value coming back to the player. Meaning that these are actually discounted premium currency bundles more than they are Prime Access or weapon bundles more than anything else. It's practically a built-in discount. Whereas if we're looking at something like the first Descendant and their ultimate bundles, you're just getting the character, an energy activator installed, and a couple cosmetics for $100. The first Descendant's pricing, gameplay loops, item acquisition, power-ups, upgrades, all of these things were directly torn from Warframe and made worse wholesale. What's upsetting about all of this?
You know why? So like I said before, it's Nexon. And if you play gacha games, you know about Nexon. And you know what they like to do. So yeah.
Is that many people, including myself, want to spend money, want to buy things. I want to support the games that I enjoy, but when your game is designed around its monetization, you undermine that enjoyment for the sake of profit. I mean, Orokin reactors, energy catalysts, these things are systems that are designed for profit. You are not expanding mod capacity. You're removing a barrier that was put in place by the developers in hopes so you would spend money to remove it. I get it. These companies have to make money. Playing a free-to-play game, making a free-to-play game, you have to have these areas of friction that urge players to buy things. However, it's all about the approach, how heavy-handed you are, or how player-focused you are. And this is just not it. The differences between these two games, their gameplay loops and their monetization, is that on the side of Digital Extremes and Warframe, you have a company that is trying to see things from the perspective of the player. They care about the player's experience. Whereas the first Descendant and Nexon copied their homework, but didn't copy their notes. I think the place that you can see...
That makes sense. I'm sorry. I know I said it multiple times. Like I said, it's Nexon. It's a gacha game company, mainly, let's be real. And if we're going to be completely honest here, most gacha game companies don't see their players as players. They see them as cash cows, and they're like, okay, so if we make this hard enough, they're going to spend this amount of money because they like the game. And when it comes to games like this, that don't really work that way because, you know, they're not gacha game people that just going to spend $800 on a character for no reason, for no apparent reason in the first place. So, yeah.
See this the most clearly is in player expression. If you look around the entire game, everybody is either in the base skin of their frame or they're all the exact same color. You'll see some people that are wearing maid outfits and swimsuits and things like that, but it's the base color version because the game just lacks color. Because if you want it, well, you need to buy it and it's a one-time use. You better hope that's the color that you want. And yeah. But in Warframe, from the very start, you have access to colors. There's not an absolute ton of them or anything like that. You can definitely go buy more and buy cosmetics and things like that. From the very start, you have the ability to change the color of your entire frame, of your weapons, of different little objects that are on your character and lights that are on your character, of the energy that you use, of the abilities that you cast. That's one of the coolest things I love is the fact that you can change the color of the abilities that you use. Sick. Anyway, it's just player expression and enjoyment in that way is not their prerogative. Profit is their prerogative, and that's fine, but you have to do it the right way. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of recently, I've seen a lot of people having these discussions, white knighting the first Descendant, defending it from the Warframe accusations, defending it from the comparisons of monetization and trade and things like that.
I'm gonna be honest, if you white knight any company, I'm gonna be like you just need help. You need mental help. Like, bro, these companies don't care about you. They don't care that you white knighting them. They like, oh well, that's somebody we know we can get money out of. Let's add them into the cash bag. The cash bag, guys.
That. And the only thing that I really have to say is that it's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. You can like a game, but that doesn't somehow make everything else it's doing okay. You can like a game, and you can still criticize it. You can still have issues with it, and you should, because that's how those games get better in the first place. I'm sick of seeing this weird conversation about, let them cook. It took Warframe 10 years to get where they got. Really? Did it take the first Descendant 10 years to copy Warframe? Isn't it odd to you that out of all of the things that they didn't copy from Warframe or Destiny or The Division, or specifically with Warframe, the one thing that they didn't take was the fairness, the monetization? Isn't that oddly convenient to you? It completely ignores the idea and takes away the responsibility of developers, saying that like, oh, well, it took Warframe 10 years to get there. Like, we're supposed to wait for this game to do the exact same thing when it has the easy opportunity to, well, learn from the mistakes of its peers. I like the game, but I don't respect it. And in a lot of ways, it's an insult to the games that it copies from. I still plan on playing it. I still plan on putting some more time into it and seeing if any of my opinions change in the future. They probably won't, but at least I'll give it a shot. I mean, I almost quit Warframe after 20 to 30 hours, so stranger things have definitely happened. I hope the game does get better in the future. I hope it becomes more fair. I hope that some of these companies wake up to this, because this is the way that you find a dedicated audience. And I'm not saying that there isn't one for this game already, and I'm not saying there aren't players that are going to want to continue to play it or that it's not doing well, but the thing is, at the end of the day, when you make a game that is as unfairly designed as the first Descendant is in so many ways, and how there's other games that are out there that respect your time so much more, I don't see it holding on to its player base the same way that Warframe does. That's it. Anyway. Thank you guys for watching the video. I'm sure I upset quite a lot of you. If I did, I'm sure you'll leave a comment. I'll try not to read it. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. Catch me live on Twitch if you guys want to try to yell at me there. Outside of that, I'm going to get out of here.
That was a good video. I never really watched this man videos for real, but that was a good one. Legacy drops like that was a good video. I'm gonna be honest, my complete thoughts on the first Descendant is I think that it's a good game at heart. Obviously now that I've seen that, yes, they definitely did copy Warframe. Like the first Descendant copied Warframe. Like, we can see I never really played Warframe, so I wouldn't know, right? But at the end of the day, I think the monetization, the grinding loop that it has, all that stuff about it, me personally, is bad. It's super bad. It's horrible, especially for a game like this. Like, nobody want to sit there and grind all day, okay? But the thing is, it makes sense why they do this, right? In the sense of, it's Nexon. Nexon is the same people that made Maple Story, I believe. I think they're the same people that made Blue Archive. They're a gacha game company, and most gacha game companies think if you add enough, like let's be real, you add enough hot characters, and then you up the prices on everything, and then you sell it to the people with this loot that most people don't want to play. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just buy it and I'll be good. So that's why I think Nexon, that's why I think they like the game is going the way the game is going. I think the developers and all of them actually do want to make a good game. I do believe that. But I also believe that Nexon is doing Nexon things like they always been doing, which is putting out games and having it be really high in price. I think they did it on purpose. Like, obviously, like he said, they did it on purpose. They sat there and they was like, you know, guys, we're going to copy Warframe, Destiny, and the other game. They all did good. We're going to copy their art. We're going to copy what they did. And then at the end of that, we're going to, like, they were like, and then somebody probably like, hey, so what about, you know, the Fairness monetization? Then they probably got fired. They were like, let's up the price and everything and make them like actually pay for a lot. And then that's when people were like, oh yeah, you'll get a raise. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's what I think. I think they're doing it because they think they can. And I think that, to be honest, if you're white knighting that, you need help, and that the developers should definitely stop doing that and like just lower the prices so that way people can actually want to buy stuff. Because that is so true, that when you look in the game, right, if you open up the first Descendant right now and you go through, I would, but that lower screen takes forever for me because it's on something, it's not on SSD. So if you go there, you load up the game. When you first load into Albion, right, the first thing that you see is a lot of people just sitting there, right? I don't know why they sit there. I guess those are where the people go, okay. But when you look at them, and then you look at all the other people as well that's running around and whatever, most of them has the default skin. And then like occasionally you'll see like the swimsuit one here, or you'll see like the maid one there, and yeah, but most of the time most people is like, I ain't spending money in this game, I'm just gonna do this, and that's it. They just use the default. But anyway, other than that, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe if you don't forget to share the video. Let me know how you even feel about the first Descendant and anything that practice that they do. And yeah, I'll catch you on the flip side. And also check out this video that's popping up somewhere, I don't even know, probably above me to be honest. So yeah.